If the Republican tax plan passes Congress, it will mark a watershed for the United States. The medium and long-term effects of the plan are clear. A massive drop in public investment, which will come on the heels of decades of declining spending as a percentage of GDP on infrastructure, scientific research, skills training, and core government agencies. The United States cannot coast on past investments forever, and with this legislation, we are ushering in a bleak future. The tax bill is expected to add at least $1 trillion to the national debt over the next 10 years, and many experts believe that the real loss to federal revenues will be much higher. We can expect big spending cuts in the near future, which would happen on top of an already dire situation. As Gary Burtles of the Brookings Institution points out, combined public investment by federal, state, and local governments is at the lowest point in 6 decades relative to GDP. The United States is at a breaking point. In August, the World Bank looked at 50 countries and found that America will have the largest unmet infrastructure needs over the next 2 decades. Look in any direction. According to the American Road and Transport Builders Association, the United States has almost 56,000 structurally deficient bridges, about 1,900 of which are on interstate highways, and all of these are crossed 185 million times a day. There is no better indication of the U.S. government's myopia than the decline in funding for research. Research and development topped 10% of the national budget in the mid-1960s. It is now under 4%. This is happening in an environment in which other countries, from South Korea to Germany to China, are ramping up their investments in these areas. A new study finds that China is on track to surpass the U.S. as the world leader in biomedical research spending. When I came to America in the 1980s, I was struck by how well American government functioned. When I would hear complaints about the IRS or the FAA, I would often reply, "Have you ever seen how badly these bureaucracies work in other countries?" Certainly compared with India, where I grew up, but even compared with countries like France and Italy, many of the federal government's key officers were professional and competent. But decades of criticism, congressional micromanagement, and massive underfunding have taken their toll. Agencies like the IRS are now threadbare. The Census Bureau is preparing to go digital and undertake a new national tally. But it is hamstrung by an insufficient budget and has had to cancel several much-needed tests. The list goes on and on. Now, there are genuine problems beyond underfunding. The cost of building infrastructure in America is astronomical. But during the Depression, World War II, and much of the Cold War, a sense of crisis and competition focused America's attention, and it created a bipartisan urgency to get things done. Ironically, at a time now when competition is far more fierce, when other countries have surpassed the United States in many of these areas, America has fallen into extreme partisanship and embraced a know-nothing libertarianism that is starving the country of the essential investments it needs for future growth. Those who vote for this tax bill, possibly the worst piece of major legislation in a generation, will live in infamy as the country slowly breaks down.